So arrested anti-war protesters will have their DNA stored on the database for how long? The answer is forever.
OK. Your thoughts on changes to the way DNA samples can be held by the ROSAs in England and Wales. Our Home Secretary Alan Johnson yesterday announced a series of changes which have been forced on the government by Europe. Adults convicted of a crime will have their samples held forever, as will kids who've offended twice. Innocent grown-ups, that is, people who've never been charged or charged and cleared of a crime, will have theirs held for up to 6 years. Innocent children under 16, their samples held for 3, unless they're under 10, in which case no sample can be held at all. DNA traces and samples will be automatically removed from the database when the time limit is reached, or so they say. Civil liberties groups are furious, even though Europe has forced the pendulum pretty much back in their direction. Many feel the police have no right to anyone's DNA if that person is innocent. With close to 6 million samples on the database already, another argument against is that the more samples you have on it, the greater the risk for error. Your calls in just a sec. First, let's have a quick word with the panel. I'm going to start with you, Nick, because we've heard from the other guys yesterday. Are you a fan of the DNA database?
I'm not worried about it, because they'll only cock it up. It really is.
Isn't that the thing to be worried about?
But well, no, but
well, Nick Moran suddenly convicted of a crime that he never committed.
Yeah, but it won't happen. I mean, the level of incompetence at the government. When I was on this show last time with George Galloway, we were discussing ID cards. And ID cards, they haven't been implemented because they can't organise it. And if you can't organise an ID card, how are you going to struggle with 60 million pieces of DNA, you know, 5 million of which will fit on the end of a pin? It's nonsense. Why don't you just cut away? It's a nice idea, chaps, but you've been reading too much science fiction and you can't do it. And there will be so many errors. There will be so many... Swipe of that, yeah, apparently you committed this crime. No, I didn't, because I'm only 4 years old. You know, that's what it'll be. So don't, you know, I've absolute, complete faith in the incompetence of the government to make this work. So it's a non-story for me. They won't do it. Lovely. Well, good idea. Someone's being paid to think of these things, but it won't actually become a reality, so don't worry about it.
But they are doing it, though, Nick.
They are doing
it. Yeah. No, I agree with you, but that's the thing, that they are doing it. I mean, the announcement has been made. They will be kept. What they will be kept.
They announced they were going to have ID cards. It hasn't happened.
That is very true. I mean, you can equally say they can't afford it. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this briefly yesterday. We didn't know the full details. Things like anti-war protesters, their DNA held forever. You see, my suspicion is always that schemes like this can be used as a political tool. History will tell us that if you give a government power over its people, invariably it will abuse that power and start to manipulate the democratic process for its own ends. Karzai in Afghanistan being a classic example. We're doing it in this country.
Well, I mean, I'm not as cynical as you. You and I have had this kind of exchange on numerous occasions, but I have to say, Matthew, I am doing a bit of a volte-face on this. I do start to find it worrying, and I do question what is the value of this. And there's a basic premise of law, which is innocent till proven guilty, and you've said this to me before, and I've kind of defended from the other position. But I really am beginning to get alarmed at the lack of evidence that has been put before us to justify this action. And I do agree with everything you said, but sadly, I think they are doing it.
The ultimate argument is it will help us solve hideous crimes. But I wonder, Stephen, whether that is sufficient to justify keeping innocent people's DNA on file. Is that a good enough reason?
I don't think it is at all. The mantra that everyone is innocent until proven guilty should stand. DNA is not infallible. Mistakes can be made. All it needs is for your neighbour or someone who doesn't like you to make some outrageous
claim
complaint or to the police about you. You get arrested while they investigate it, and at point of arrest, you get your DNA. And that can't be fair. That can't be right.
Absolutely. Let's throw it open to you. As I said, lots of you got in touch yesterday. We'll read out some of those emails or flash them up on screen. Let's take your calls as well.
First, we have Marie, and she's on line 2.